Fiona Harrison, founder, CEO, Chocolate on Purpose, and CEO semi-finalist, who will open this session with an acknowledgement of country. Welcome on stage, Fiona.
Thank you. So first I'm going to give the acknowledgement in Wiradjuri language and then in English. Yurdumarang mayin galang, yuwindo biwana, Wiradjuri yina milthopdi. Guga bangadurai nurumbangu, wile bangadurai miangangu. Nado banigugu bara Wiradjuri nurumbanga, nina nankira durinya kayi galang. Nato banigugu para muyulung galang maradubu yalabu. Nato banigugu para biambu kual nurumbang galangbu. Mandangubu wudagabinya. What I just said was, "G'day people, my name's Fiona. I'm a Wiradjuri woman from Millthorpe. My nation's totem is the goanna. My family's totem is the possum. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri nation on whose land I stand today. I would like to acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge all the First Nations lands you all stand on today. Thank you for listening."
Thank you, Fiona. That was beautiful. I love learning about all the totems. And while you're at it, if you're here in the audience, please put on what land that you are on so we can recognize all of the lands that are represented today. Hello, I'm Julie Trell. My pronouns are her, she, and I'm joining you today from Gadigal land. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you today as the CEO Australian Country Lead. This is our third Australian Summit, our second virtual. Over the course of 2 days and 4 90-minute sessions, you will be engaging in our 4 CEO themes: mindset, ventures, finance, and systems. You'll be meeting the CEO community, the hundreds of radically generous women and non-binary people involved, and of course, the venture founders and businesses they are growing. By joining the summit, whether you are a 3-year activator, a new activator, a potential venture, or just curious to learn more, you are now part of the energy of this community. Can I get a wave? I hope you can feel it, and thank you for adding to it and joining today. To our radically generous CEO activators that contribute time and investment to enable CEO ventures and businesses of their fellow activators to grow their impact, I say thank you. To the hundreds of women and non-binary people who are attending as guests at the nudge of an activator, a social media post, or for media cover, I say welcome. And to the guests watching live gathered together in the Gold Coast in Adelaide, I wave hello. Can I get a shout? Quick overview of CEO. We are a global community of radically generous women and non-binary folks working on the world's to-do list. 2 words you'll hear over the 4 sessions are activator and venture. Activators activate their buying power, networks, and expertise to create an equitable and sustainable world. Ventures are entrepreneurs who are creating a better world through their businesses and are funded, selected, and supported by activators in the community. As activators and ventures, we practice radical generosity and we commit to transforming ourselves and systems. To date, more than 7,000 activators around the world have collectively loaned $7 million to support more than 100 CEO ventures, and we're just getting started. Woohoo, that's a big wave. If you're interested in learning more, getting involved, please check out the links in the chat. Now, throughout the summit, we invite you to live out loud and share your experience on social media. Use the hashtag SheEOAU21 and be sure to tag and follow SheEO. All your links are in the chat. Let's use our voices to amplify the stories of women and non-binary people working on the world's to-do list. Now, in Australia, SheEO is community-driven, and the work required to create the success of this model has received invaluable financial support this year from our partners. Thank you, CBA and Telstra, for your support for 3 consecutive years. One final housekeeping note. Our event is being live captioned by Otter AI. If you are hearing impaired or if you want to go back through something said earlier, we're posting a link to our live transcription right now. And with that, I will be stepping off stage until the second session later this afternoon, where we will be announcing the 5 ventures selected by the activators. I now turn it over to your esteemed MC for this session, Finance.world, 3-time activator, coming from Queensland and Brisbane, Sissy Ma.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Julie. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Hi, everyone. I'm Sissy Ma. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm joining you today from the Turbo and Jagger land. I still vividly remember when I activated for CEO in 2018. We had a room full of people at the global simulcast, and I took out my phone and paid before Vicky even finished her slides. Increasing funding for women and non-binary folks for generations to come is an easy cause for me to take action in. I am extremely honored today to host the finance session. Our very own celebrity, Moira Ware, AM, will frame the session with the 4 Fs. So the theme of the session is fast, fabulous, feminist, finance, the 4 F. I know it's quite a mouthful. The format will be 4 by 4 by 4 by 4, then 7-minute one-on-ones. I'll explain as we go. After Moira's framing, it'll be followed by a panel of 4 activators who will each answer 4 questions, spending 1 minute on each response. Everyone will then be randomly assigned to one of the 4 breakout rooms to further explore the same 4 questions for 40 minutes. Each of the panelists will host one of the breakout rooms with another activator or venture. Someone from each room will report back at the end. Clear as mud? Don't worry, we have the fabulous CEO team, Nat and Renee, behind stage co-hosts, Fing, Lisa, Marina, and Tanya, and Scribe, Lucy, Ness, Nicola, and Sybil to support us along the way. Well, our very first speaker, Moira, needs no introduction as she has hosted loads of weekly CEO Australian Summit community calls. She was appointed a member of the Order, AM, in the Australian Day 2019 honours list for significant service to the community of South Australia through a whopping 41 community roles dating back to 1984. That's not even counting her role for the CEO. She's definitely one who practices radical generosity every day. So let's put our hands together to welcome Moira to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sissy, and for the beautiful welcome from all of you and acknowledgement of country from Fiona. And I'd like to acknowledge that I'm here on Kaurna country. This is land that's never been ceded, and I'm long for the day where we have a just settlement. And it's just fabulous to be with you all. My job today is to frame up our finance session. And as you've heard from Sissy, it's fast, fabulous, feminist finance that we're talking about today. And my frame around all of this is really not like a rigid picture frame, because there are some inside and outside pieces. We're going to have some chance to work out what we think about the way of seeing the world. So that's really what I mean by a frame. And we, have you heard from Sissy, is all about the power of 4, the power of amplification, the thing that happens with our exponential power of combining our energy and our skills and our talents and our networks, our fast, fabulous, feminist finance. So let's start with fast. We're running to the future so we can meet Rianne Eisler, who's already there. And if you don't know her work, please look her up. This place has a new caring economic paradigm, an earth-sustaining future nurtured by partnership, where we take instruction from nature and a fair share is the norm. The future is regenerative, like SheEO's perpetual fund. Finance flows fast. There aren't long delays waiting for others to authorise and validate your idea, or your business, or yourself, or your worth, or your contribution. You can ask and give in a single experience. It's fast because we have high trust. Someone said to me recently that the SheEO, with SheEO, the due diligence is done. When you arrive into this community, you can just get straight on with it. Fast is when we can quickly get the changes we need most urgently right now into place, and the systems to respond and new systems to emerge. And then we come to fabulous. And aren't we all fabulous? So I think a little pat on the back for all of our own fabulousness. And if you're with each other, give them a hug if you're allowed to do that, but give yourself a hug as well for the fabulous person that you are. Fabulous means of great value, no basis in reality, or it's mythic, it's extraordinary. It's mythic and extraordinary. Just take on that on board on what fabulous means. And that's what we are. And let's never forget that. Turn to someone else on the call, or just send them a note in the chat. Just tell them they're fabulous right this minute. Don't waste a minute. I want to coin a collective noun for what we come together when we gather as SheEO, and I think we'll call it a fabulous. That's what we'll be. Our next piece is about being feminist, and the fundamental principle of feminism is that the personal is political. Everything is connected. We know this to be true, and we also know what happens to us at the micro level is a reflection of what's happening at the macro level, the systems level. What gets noticed gets reinforced and valued. And this tagline underscores the connection between our personal experiences and the larger social and cultural structures. As the great feminist poet Audre Lorde wrote, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and it is an act of political warfare. This is not separate from the financial agenda. It's deeply interwoven with our well-being. And that entrepreneur that we all know of from things that have been given his name to, Nikola Tesla, he talked about a future that was female, where feminine principles were embedded in systems. So together, let's fem the future. And now we come to that word, the fourth one, finance. And finance comes from the old French word finer, to make an end or to settle a debt. The original sense of the word was payment of debt, compensation, or a ransom. And later it became meaning around taxation and revenue. To settle a debt, well, there are plenty of debts that need to be settled right now. Colonial debts and just settlements to come as the largest wealth transfer in history is just around the corner, where women are poised to inherit a large share of the $30 trillion that will be passed down from the last generation to this one. And some of you might have been following the SheEO finance stream on SheEO.world, and you'll know that some of us have been reading David Graeber's work, Debt, the First 5,000 Years. I highly recommend you get onto that if you haven't read it already. And this is deep, deep work we're doing in SheEO to turn around the thinking from scarcity to abundance. SheEO is heralding a jubilee. We are the ones to bring this to life, working right now in this time on our to-do list, the Sustainable Development Goals. We're shaping the conditions for the new partnerships and collaborations, and we're building a finance world that is fast, is fabulous, and feminist. Back to you, Sissy.
Thank you, Mara, for framing fast, fabulous, feminist finance so well. Well, we now turn to the panel of 4 fabulous activators. I'm starting to use your pronouns now. So the number one, the first one I'd like to invite to the stage is Jackie Bloom. Jackie is the director of Shepreneur and Zedge Ventures. Zedge is committed to bridging the gap between investors and early startups early stage startups by blending foundation capital with advisory to streamline the pathway for success. And Shepreneur is on the same mission as CEO to change the staggering facts of about 2% VC funding flowing to female founders. All right, Jackie, we've got 4 questions and you have 1 minute to answer each question. And I'm told that I should boot you off if you didn't answer it in 1 minute. That would be a challenge. No, I won't. I know you can answer it very quickly, right? So first off, the first question. Okay, I'll frame the question a little bit. Money is the most universally motivating, mischievous, miraculous, maligned, and misunderstood part of contemporary life. And that is from Lynn Twist. What would you add to Lynn Twist's view and how money show up for you in your life? Do you want to answer it now? Yeah.
And I have 2 seconds before you start the timing, just to say thank you.
Sure. No, go ahead.
No, I thank you so much, Sissy, and to CEO for inviting me on here today. And thank you, Moira, for posing these questions and phrasing our fast, fabulous feminist finance this morning. I'm so excited to be here. So now I will answer the questions. And this one is a little bit more of not a tongue twister, but something I think really gets deep to think about. And I've only got 1 minute, so I better stop dawdling. But I really think the key term that stands out for me in this sentence is actually maligned. For the first 10 years of our lives, usually before the scarcity mindset of money is often taught and really kicks in, I think most of us could agree that we believed we could have anything we wanted as little girls and that we would find a way to make it happen. And then scarcity and real world responsibility kicks in, and all of a sudden we're scared to dream and think big because it's out of our reach. When in actuality, when we truly believe and in fact feel that we can have anything that we want, then it's incredible how it actually comes to us. And one of my favorite books that I've read in the past 5 years is The Secret by Rhonda. And while it's based on the law of attraction, my perspective is much more about self-belief. So when you believe in yourself and you trust yourself, then money will show up in your life because it's really that self-belief that changes your psyche to allow the great things to come in. So start with you. Was it 1 minute?
Yes, it was just over 1 minute, but that's fine.
Okay.
That's great. You timed it really well. Okay.
Thank you.
So question 2, where are you holding on to and blocking money from flowing to its best use? How are you being open-minded today to ensure that all may not simply survive, but thrive?
Wow. Okay. That really is a great question. And I think it really follows on from my previous answer. And that is that first and foremost, I believe in myself. A, I believe that I'm worthy. And B, you have to believe that you deserve the finance. So for me personally, I don't skimp on the things that make me feel good, because when I feel good and when you feel great, you tend to be much more positive. Your energy flows and it really does attract the same energy. So things like investing in a house cleaner to free up my time, or organising some home cooked meals so I don't have to arrive home at 7 p.m. and start cooking. It really is about the little things that can make a big difference. And the other thing I'd really love to add is that what we stand for with CEO and my work and involvement with Shepreneur is really about backing yourself and believing in yourself. And so one of the things I think in calling in money that I did over the weekend that I'm really proud of is that I decided an item that I was negotiating should actually be part of my package. Oh no, my minute's up. But I realized I'm worth it and I shouldn't have to negotiate for that. So I then turned around and said, well, actually, we need to pave the way for this for all women all over the world who are looking for investment. And if we're going to do that, then I need to practice it for myself. And so that's what I did.
Well done, Jackie. That is great. Great to hear that. Yes. And so number 3, Charles Eisenstein says, if you have money to invest in it in enterprises that explicitly seek to build community, protect nature, and preserve the cultural commonwealth. Expect a zero or negative financial return on your investment. That is a good sign that you are not unintentionally converting even more of the world to money. We see this in the radical generous women in CEO. So what does radical generosity mean to you when it comes to investment, wealth creation, and financial security? Jackie?
Sissy, I think this is a really interesting statement, to be honest. And personally, whilst I agree that it complements CEO's values on working on the world's to-do list, I actually think that somewhat goes a little bit against the philosophy of believing in yourself and creating wealth, both for yourself and the economy as a woman, because we can and we deserve it. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with believing, investing in and working on both money and creating an improved, more sustainable world. And I believe that we can do both. So radical generosity to me is really about giving of yourself in every way that you can and that you can afford to, because when you give of yourself for the right reasons and without expectation, in order to help and create and shape a better world. So it's not about converting, to me, but even more of the world to money. It's actually converting more of the world into money, which in turn then provides more opportunities to women who would never have had these opportunities if we hadn't have converted the money in the first instance.
Well done. Thank you, Jackie. Sorry, I was so interested in your statement that I forgot to time you.
That's
well.
okay. I'll forgive you.
It's provocative. But I actually agree with you, but never mind. That's not to say. Number 4 is, if money were no object, what would you create? What would you build? Who would you invite to create with you? And how would you serve the needs of the world if money were no object?
Okay, well, I think stemming back from that, moving on from limiting beliefs, I actually believe that the simple fact is money is no object and shouldn't be an object. Yes, it absolutely helps and can certainly make a massive difference. But even without money, we can have an impact when we serve the needs of the world. So again, by believing in yourself, by lifting your own energy and vibration, the world actually becomes a happier place. If we're all walking around happy with smiles on our faces, that then allows others to really feel and be happy in themselves. So imagine all of us doing that, walking around without that care in the world, a huge smile on your face. It just feels amazing. And how will that impact others? So for me, my message would be, start with a smile, transition that smile into naturally helping others, buy a stranger a coffee just because, or call a friend out of the blue who you haven't spoken to for years. To me, when we work on those little things, we then have a greater impact on the bigger things. So I invite everyone to have a great day.
Start with a smile. Excellent. And a hug if you can. And a hug if you can, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, Jackie. Yes, great. All right.
My pleasure, Sissy.
Thank you, Jackie. We'll talk later. So number 2, I'd like to invite to the stage is Lucinda Hartley. Lucinda is a 2019 CEO Venture, founding director of Neighborlytics, a global urban tech company drawing on public social data to capture the digital print of cities, giving real-time insight into neighborhood life. They have created data for over 1,000 neighborhoods in 12 countries and was named in the 2019 Deloitte Rising Star list and 2019 Victoria Startup of the Year in the Australian Information Industry Association Awards. Hey, Lucinda, welcome.
Thanks so much, Sissy. It's great to be here and to see everyone on the call.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucinda. So you've heard the framing of the 4 questions, and you'll have the same 4 minutes to answer the 4 questions.
On the clock.
Yes, we'll dive straight into it. I'm not going to restate what Lynn Twist was saying. But the first question is, what would you add to Lynn Twist's view, and how money show up for you in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether to add to, but just to sort of unpack some of those terms. And I focus in on misunderstood, actually, because I always grew up feeling like, money and other values were trade-offs that you had to weigh up together, that you could either have impact or economy, or you could have economic benefits or climate outcomes, or and I think we all know, especially in this community, that finance can be the most powerful cause for solving many of those global issues. But I think we can misunderstand that, or we can give too much license to looking at a very simplistic view of economy. And so that was sort of my interpretation of that quote, is I do think it's misunderstood in terms of because money is in so many ways the tool for empowerment and change that we need.
Love that. Thank you. Misunderstood. Yeah, most definitely. So question number 2, where are you holding on to and blocking money from flowing to its best use? How are you being open-handed today to ensure that all may not simply survive, but thrive?
Yeah, this is quite a challenging question, I think, looking at that one, and it caused me to reflect in lots of different ways. In some ways, I mean, sort of to echo what we heard earlier, I think there is a sense of worthiness that needs to come with, owning that it's okay to either want or create wealth. I think equally on that, I mean, personally, I find that practically comes down to asking for the right price for our work. So whether that's pricing our product or, pricing other services, and feeling like just that we should own the price that it should be, and not feeling, I think that sort of self-negotiation sometimes happens internally. Running a fast-growing tech company that's still in its early stages, it can feel like we don't have resources a lot of the time. It often, because you're always wanting to stretch one goal further ahead than where your runway is actually at. And, in that mindset, it doesn't feel like we have a lot of cash, but we actually have, plenty when we think about it as resources rather than just sort of runway, because we have a huge access to networks and opportunity. And sometimes we just try and reframe the problem around, what would this look like if we had all of the resources that we needed, not necessarily just all the cash in the bank that we needed. And that helps sometimes.
Yeah, and the 7,000 plus activators, right?
Absolutely.
That's all the resources
included.
Yeah, included. Yes. Thank you for that. And question 3, what does radical generosity mean to you when it comes to investment, wealth creation, and financial security?
Yeah.
Christina?
I mean, generosity is such a brilliant principle that the whole CEO community adopts, and you see that in playing out. And to the previous comment, I think those tensions around value creation or wealth creation are kind of like brought together when you have an approach of generosity. Where I found generosity plays out is in terms of how patient capital is. I think it is possible to have all the outcomes to create social impact and to create revenue and to create all the rest. But it may not be possible to do that in 2 years or 3 years. And sometimes these sort of more complex system change problems that are being thoughtful and collaborative can take time. And so I think radical generosity often plays out, particularly in startups and VC, which is sort of, my world at the moment, that plays out in having more patient capital because you sometimes need time to invest in those solutions.
Yes, very good. Thank you so much. Yeah, patience. Yes, most definitely. So the last question, number 4, is if money were no object, what would you create? What would you build? Who would you invite to create with you?
I mean, to say what was said earlier, I also agree that I don't think there's actually a limit. I don't think there's a barrier. I don't think I don't think money is not an object. I think there are lots of barriers to accessing it. And actually what I would do is remove the barriers to accessing that finance. And CEO does a brilliant job of that on so many levels. And there are many other domains like, getting mortgages, getting other loans, getting venture capital, where the process itself has a risk profile that makes things very different. So I would completely reframe what the risk profile needs to look like. I personally, for a bank, am someone who appears incredibly high risk, but I actually don't think I'm a risky bet. So that's sort of, if we can reframe the way that we legally manage and flow money, then I think we could unlock a huge amount of potential.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Lucinda. Thank you very much. And yes, we will.
No, thanks very much,
move
Sissy.
on. Yeah, thank you. Well, that's right. So number 3, we have Trina Probert, a 2021 semi-finalist. Sorry, let me stop my timer. Yes, a 2021 semi-finalist, founder and CEO of Superfierce, a superannuation comparison and switching service for women. To date, Superfierce has saved $21.4 million for women and donated $8,600 dollars to women in need. Trina is a tireless innovator and experienced entrepreneur after starting multiple businesses, including one exit. Trina, welcome.
Thank you, Sissy. Oh, have I turned off my, yes. Hello.
No, you're, yes. Oh, I love your color every time, so vibrant. That is great. Yes, that is your signature color, isn't it, Trina? Yes.
Yes.
All right, so
color.
That's right. Let's move on to the questions. So 4 questions, the same deal. You have 1 minute to answer each question. So I'm starting. The first question is, what would you add to Lynn Twist's view and how money show up for you in your life? Do you want to go?
So when I first heard motivating, mischievous, miraculous, maligned, and misunderstood, I was like, are they actually describing me? But then I thought probably there's a lot of people in this community who feel that same way. But my serious answer is that I would actually add another word to Lynn's view, which is mission. So mission is the 6 M word that threads the other 5 together to make sure that the 5 M's of money work for you and not against us all. So my personal story is a massive mashup of all of those money M's, but the mischief for me really resulted from the fact that I kind of ignored it. So despite working in finance for decades, I just really didn't care about money enough to take it seriously. And so through that process, I gave away a lot of my power, and that had some pretty devastating personal outcomes for me. But that fast forward to today. So now I've added mission to that. So I'm mission motivated. And by having one mission to focus on and leaning into my understanding of investments, finance, and money, I now have all 5 money M's working together for us all and not just against me.
Well, thank you so much. Mission, I love that. Definitely. Without mission, you don't achieve anything, right? Yes. So, I'm sorry, I've got a little slack.
Sorry.
Yes. Yes. Question number 2. Where are you holding on to and blocking money from flowing to its best use? How are you being open-handed today to ensure that all may not simply survive but thrive?
I mean, the personal reflection here, which I hadn't thought about until I was listening to Jackie, is that for the first time as a startup founder, for the first time in years, 2 weeks ago, I paid myself a salary for the first time. So that was a pretty exciting moment where I might be able to shift to actually surviving and then move to thriving. But, you know, in reality, I think of money as a tool, and just like any tool, if you put it away in the shed, it rusts. Pretty sure that's what happens. I'm not really a gardener, but anyway, but my point here is that money stashed away, it doesn't survive, it decays. So it gets eaten away by time and by inflation. And so if we just grow it and stash it, then that's a waste of resources for you and the world. So money is a tool, it's a weapon for choice, and it enables us to step past surviving to thriving if it's based on deliberate choice. So it doesn't mean growing more and more money, it means putting money to good use. And in my work, I'm striving to ensure that the money flows to women because it won't stop there. Once women are surviving financially, they can build on that to start thriving. That then gives them choice. And women who are empowered with confidence, tools, and support, they look beyond the traditional metrics to invest smart with radical generosity to lift each other up, save our planet, and create a better world. And that's a better world for everybody.
Thank you, Trina. That is perfect. So move on to question number 3. What does radical generosity mean to you when it comes to investment, wealth creation, and financial security?
Yeah, well, it sort of sounds a bit like an oxymoron, really, doesn't it? But for me, radical generosity is more than lip service, and it's more than meeting quotas and ticking the box of being a good corporate citizen. Radical generosity is caring as much about the well-being of others as your personal return. Now, we all know that that can be hard when mischievous little rat bag money gets involved, and that's because we're wired to think there isn't enough, to hold on to it, to strive to grow it so that we can survive and then thrive, but always with that fear that it might be taken away. So competition is hard baked into our decisions about money, but growing money just to have more money, well, it's not really enough. That can destroy lives, families, communities, and ultimately our planet. So we can't just assume that that's okay. The Western world isn't wired to think this way, though, especially when it comes to investments. It's competitive and financial returns are always the priority. It's changing slowly, but it's still the priority. So radical generosity starts with democratizing economic security and building a resilient but generous new system where returns are not measured just in how much richer the rich can get.
Wow, thank you. That's great. So number 4, it's if money were no object, what would you create? What would you build? Who would you invite to create with you? How would you serve the needs of the world?
So there are 2 answers to this. The first is a really short one, which is I'm already trying to do that. And, you know, the money is starting to flow. And so we're getting there with super fierce. But I'm going to go back to something that I came up with when I was in my 20s. And I'll be 49 at the end of the month. But I still believe in this. So I built a central global platform, which would be heart-fueled but AI-optimized 2-sided marketplace, connecting funds and smarts with causes. So just one platform to manage it all. Every human need would be entered at the top of the funnel, every cause that people care about for Earth, people, and the future. Data about the problems and the solutions, channels of research, collaboration and community, all optimized to link science with hope. Then we'd pour all the world's impact resources into the top. So then we don't have a need for the 90 million NFPs who are all clamoring for attention and competing for the dollars. Got massive savings in marketing and bureaucracy, just one efficient mechanism for analysing the areas with need and then matching the right dollars and people and support to address each of those with ease. And then the last part, who would I invite to create it with me? Well, obviously every single one of you, because we know that we need the people with the heart, the passion, the ideas, energy, smarts, and money to build the creative solutions, fund it, believe in it, to actually make it happen.
Thank you, Trina. That is great. Thank you. Yes, so we are actually running over time right now. I will go to our 4th speaker, which is Felicity Chapman. Felicity Chapman is a Delhi weavers from Ngara and Ghia country. Felicity's aim with Delhi weavers is to revitalize and preserve ancient cultural knowledge, shining a light on the treasured tradition of cultural weaving. Some of us had the privilege to participate in Felicity's Swimming Magic. Yes, that was the CEO for 2020 Summit from last year. That was a really great experience with Felicity. So thank you very much for coming to the stage for today. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you, CEO, for the invite. And I'd like to acknowledge the countries that we're all gathering on and sharing our love and wisdom today. Without the ancient wise ones, I wouldn't be here in this room. So very grateful to be part of this conversation.
Yes, thank you. We are all very grateful to be part of the conversation. Yes, so you heard all the other 3 panelists about the 4 questions. If I could move on to the question now, if that's okay. So question 1 is, what would you add to Lindquist's view and how money show up for you in your life?
Okay, so adding some extra words for me, it's magical, it can be fearful, it's frustrating, it can be, there's infinite value, and it's also very infuriating. When I'm calm and I'm sitting gently in my power, money flows and all the associated gifts around it. But when I slip into that place of fear and uncertainty and lack, it just shuts it off suddenly like a frozen tap. It's finding the balance of trying to remove the emotion from the equation and treating it as a tool. Like we use, you know, you got your spanner, you got your computer, you got this brain, you know, when we can sort of remove all that stuff around money, I find that I sit in a much better place.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Love it. It's a tool. Well, number 2, where are you holding on to and blocking money from flowing to its best use? How are you being more open-handed today to ensure that all may not simply survive but thrive? Felicity?
Okay, so open-handed for me, it's supporting small businesses, normally in regional areas, and looking at value as opposed to cheaper mass-produced items, because often paying that more has a greater impact on the community and where they live and they work. And therefore that creates their own form of radical generosity, because when they become strong, then they can support, they give back to their community. And it's something that they're normally doing on a daily basis. When I slip into that rabbit hole of the patriarchal construct of what economy and wealth looks like, everything dries up really quickly. I start to make really poor financial decisions, and the money gets wasted rather than where it goes to where it could be used and valued better.
Value. Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for that. Okay. Question number 3 is about radical generosity. What does it mean to you when it comes to investment, wealth creation, and financial security? Felicity?
Okay, for me, being radical, it's really picking apart the very slick marketing that is employed by the global corporates that want you to believe that they're ethical, and if you get deep dive into it, you find it that they're ticking that box for their corporate social responsibility, saying that they're green. They're all money-making machines. They don't actually value community. They don't value minority. And for me, it's turning the lens back on finding the smaller business, the micro businesses that do really amazing things, and they just sit working away quietly. And for me, when I have additional funds, it automatically goes into the Indigenous community that I'm working for. So I can provide the resources that I know that will be truly valued and will actually help individual community members and start to dream big and achieve their goals. And that's my form of radical generosity.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Right, number 4, if money were no object, what would you create? What would you build? Who would you invite to create with you? How would you serve the needs of the world? Felicity?
Okay, so I'm going to, first of all, I'd invite everybody from CEO, because you girls are just also amazing. Secondly, I would be sitting on my soapbox and I would be getting our governments to enshrine Indigenous cultural intellectual property into all their policies, into law. Once our First Nations have our sovereignty and treaty, we can start to build really healthy, vibrant, sustainable communities for everyone. I would like to set up some business awards for the tiny but mighty businesses, the artists, the creatives, the nanos, the micros, who, as part of their core belief, step away from having the pressure of being scale up, scale out, because they know they make an amazing difference to the community each and every day. They're the ones that hold the social fabric of the world together, and they need to be recognised and celebrated. On a personal level, I'd build a huge amount of land. I mean, I'd buy a huge amount of land, and then I'd develop a family community, not a commune, because, you know, we don't do drugs, And then I would start doing sustainable growing of native plants, but I would work in alignment with traditional harvesting methods. And you never know what would come out of that. So that's the plan.
It sounds great. Love these ideas. Thank you, Felicity. Thank you very much. All right. So now you have an opportunity to continue the conversation by panelists and the facilitator. And now, I'm sorry about that, in a co-facilitator in smaller breakout groups. So behind the scenes, our radical generous volunteers and scribes will be capturing your wisdom and wit to help us create content to share with the world. What our learning and insights have been in this session. You will have 25 minutes to, I know we said 40, but I think we ran over time in the panel session. So we have 25 minutes to explore the same questions in your breakout rooms. Through the magic of Zoom, we will put you in one of the 4 rooms. After the 25 minutes, we will come back to the main room and share some of the insights. So are we assigning people to each of the breakout rooms right now?
Your breakout rooms are good to go. I'm going to open them up now and enjoy your session.
Thank you. Right, we are back. I think we got 87 back. Did we have over 100 before we started? Not sure. But how were those sessions? Let's check in to see if there were any aha moments from the fabulous room. Can we bring, I think, Moira back? Moira, would you like to share from the room what you guys would like to share?
You can bring me back. Thanks, Sissy. I'm not the best person though. I'm wondering, Felicity, you chose someone, I believe, and
that would be Julie. Yay, go Julie.
Julie,
Julie.
go for it, Julie. Thank you, and thank you for our co-host behind the scenes helping with everything. Finn, a big round of applause to her.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and thank you for the summit here. So real quick, in the fabulous room, we talked a lot about micro businesses, or what Felicity calls the small and mighty, and these nano businesses who are not getting government or access, or they're being overlooked because they don't want to grow. And then the room just decided to grow and flow with all of these other micro businesses, sharing what they're doing, how they're doing, supporting one another. And when I say supporting one another, having other women, Maria had to got up back on stage to talk about Angeline, who was not selling herself as much as she could have. So I just wanted to just step back and changing a little bit about fabulousness of women really supporting women. And the solopreneurs and the micropreneurs. We had someone talking about really looking to making sure that Kavita Herbert talked about how her business is helping these smaller businesses get noticed and be found.
Thank you, Julie. Great. So from the classroom, let's bring up Kat for a summary. Kat?
All right, hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go
so
ahead,
we got into a few discussions. I'll share a bit of a recap. For the first question, one of the great comments that was made is that we don't actually own the land that we have, the land owns us. And this kind of led a discussion around how we can, as a community, I guess, or as people that have, you know, more wealth, how can we share that with those that are less fortunate and have this sort of way to give back and reduce some of the inequalities that we're seeing in the world and invest in a more safe kind of society and more equitable society, because there is enough to go around. And if we have more investment and wealth coming from women, I think we'll see more women wanting to share that and support others. We also talked about the ideas around impact investing and how we are starting to see a shift in impact investing and more people coming on board to support that. However, there's still a bit of a gap because a lot of the investment, as we know, is coming from mainly men, and there's still that expectation that we have to create this, high scalable business and get a return on that investment that's just financial, when we sort of realize that it is, we want to be able to have ways that we can measure not just the financial impact, but the sustainable impact, the environmental impact, whatever the other impacts are that we're trying to create as well, to build more of those kind of social enterprise models. And then we also talked about, how can we change that conversation around that? How can we create businesses that, are not having that expectation and maybe using other means to get funds to grow in a more sustainable way? So hopefully that covered most of the things. I think we could have kept discussing all of them. So Gina, if you want to add anything else, feel free, but I think that's all.
No, we just definitely needed several more fortnights of time.
Yes, we have the weekly community calls. So great. Thanks a lot. Great summary, Kat. Now, from the feminist room is Lucinda. Would you like to share what we discussed in the feminist room?
Sure. So this is a lot of our discussion related to unlearning, just how the patterns that sit behind how we approach finance, whether that's worthiness or, asking for what it's worth, or feeling confident, or getting the right returns, felt like they need to unlearn all of these different patterns of our relationship with money. And then that also bled into a whole lot of other conversations around collaboration, and I guess, a patriarchal model that sort of pits competition and only one winner, and in that model needing to also address how we work together to support each other, celebrate each other. So there was a lot of our conversation came back to those points. I think it's probably the main summary, but if there's anyone else from the group who wants to jump into the things I've missed, we had a great conversation.
Yes, most definitely. I was in that conversation, loved it as well. So thank you so much, Lucinda. Next one, finally, from the finance room, what did you guys get up to in your room? Gail?
Thanks, Sissy. Yeah, we had a great flowing conversation, starting from what's the meaning of money. From some of the ideas that we heard were things like money is not us, it's not our identity. Money is loaded with meanings that we have added to it, and so there is an unlearning or a shedding of old ways of thinking that stand in the way of the second big theme of the group, giving. We talked, I'm struck because I'm from finance, and we tend to be the ones most confined by the old rules of hoarding. And I was struck by a number of examples in the room of people who talk about money, spending money with joy and pleasure and flow, and none of that you would ever read in a prospectus or hear in an investor call. But this is all real, and this is how we work with our money and the embodiment of radical generosity. We talked about self-preservation and how it's okay to take for yourself. To give of yourself as much as you can afford was one of the quotes that I personally took away from value from. So it was really actually every question that we covered, just not in a question format, and everything coming together to talk about generous giving, the value of giving, and the value of taking care of oneself as well.
Great summary, Gail. Thank you very much. I think our group also didn't follow the questions, but we also, basically discussed a lot of what was discussed earlier. So, well, that's the formal parts of today's session. So what's next is very exciting. As we're a very interactive community, we have figured out how to be interactive and make deeper connections using the tools we have. Today it's Zoom. Our one-on-one or one-on-two speed networking is often a highlight of our events. For the next 30 minutes, we will Zoom in you in pairs or triplets with other people on this call for 7-minute chat sessions. Fear not, if the concept of networking is not your jam, we make this such a safe place and can guarantee you'll make new friends or connect with an old one. 7 minutes goes faster than you think. You don't have to do anything. As the magic of Zoom and our magicians behind it will do everything for you. If you get put in a room and no one is there at first, please stay in the room and we'll find you a match. And if not, you get 7 minutes to meditate, not mediate. We will Zoom you back after 7 minutes to the big room and do it again. Now, before we go, I want to remind you that our next session is at 1 p.m. AEDT or 12 AEST today. And that's where we'll be announcing the 5 new SheEO Australian ventures. SheEO founder Vicky Saunders will be joining us from Toronto, and you will also have the chance to hear from some of our past ventures from 2020 and 2019. You won't want to miss it. We invite you to join 5 minutes prior to get a good seat. And with that, Zoom away. Magic.